Welcome to the Cover 4 podcast. I'm Nolan Kangas alongside Bradshaw Furlong, Luca Moia, and Jeff Wall. Guys, we're continuing. We're trying to grind it all the way with our draft grades. This time around, we are going to do the AFC South and the NFC South. Certainly some interesting picks for, both teams, or every team in, all these divisions, because I think we're going to get started here in the AFC South with the Colts, which, in my opinion, I thought it was a pretty questionable draft. Who was covering them?
That is me, sir.
All right, Jeff, take it away.
Yeah, I think questionable is a good way to start things off, Nolan. I mean, Kwity Paye isn't a bad pick necessarily. One of the better guys in this draft, but I think at that position, you had to take a receiver, and they didn't, and that's going to be an issue. And I think even like taking a Tevin Jenkins there, I wouldn't have been mad at that either, but they didn't do that. And even going down the line, then they take another edge rusher after that, and I just didn't even. I mean, honestly, Ogbongbemiga was not very high on the list, really. I think as a second round pick, that's pretty rich. No Ronnie Perkins there. I mean, maybe people didn't like him for some reason. I haven't heard any reason as to why, whether it be medical or something else, why people weren't picking him so high. But this really, to me, if their division wasn't so bad, I would almost say they wouldn't make the playoffs. It actually worries me that bad. I feel like the Colts did not improve here at all. You know what? But you know what, though? We don't know. If Arthur Smith is gone he's gone from the Titans now, how might they look, right? Maybe the Colts could win the division. But to me, this draft was okay. Kwity Paye might turn out really good and shock us, right? And they definitely needed edge rusher. 100% they did. But the reality is, I think he wasn't even the best player available. And to me, I'm not going to give it the worst grade imaginable. I'll give it a C+, but I just think that they really didn't do themselves any favor. Through this draft, there's really nobody that great. Even Sam Ehlinger, honestly, kind of questionable. I don't really rate the guy at all, to be honest with you. So yeah, C+ for me, nothing special.
I'm with you there, Jeff. I had a C, and I think you hit a home run with Kwity Paye. He falls there, and that's a guy you need. You get another edge rusher. He's going to be perfect for this Indianapolis Colts defense, which came along to be probably a top 7 defense last season. But then you look at the offensive side of the ball. A lot of reliance on Carson Wentz and Jonathan Taylor. And the weapons, not my favorite thing in the world, right? Michael Pittman Jr. is really going to have to step up. He was pretty good as a rookie. T.Y. Hilton getting up there in age. And Anthony Costanzo retired. You didn't really get a replacement, right, until the 7th round in this Fries kid from Penn State. He's not making the roster. There was no impact players, I thought, after day one in Kwity Paye. So really questionable. And I think you're right? There was nothing here that really stood out to me that kind of made me say, yep, I think they're going to be, a playoff contender again. Right. So, certainly questionable all over the board. Bradshaw or Luca, did you guys have anything different, or was it sort of in that C range as well?
Yeah, it was basically the same for me. I agree with Jeff that taking 2 edge rushers back to back, kind of double dipping there was weird when there were receivers on the board. Obviously, Rashad Bateman was on the board in the first round, could have gone with him. But even if you like Kwity Paye a lot and you like the athleticism there, I know the Colts like athletic guys. Then in the second round, there's still Terrace Marshall, Tutu Atwell, Dwayne Eskridge. All those guys are still on the board. And you pass on it again for, again, another athlete, but a guy who didn't have much production in college. So it was very weird to see them double dip at the position with those first 2 picks. I'm not as down on it maybe as everyone else, but I definitely don't think it's a strong draft, to say the least.
All righty, so that moves us forward to the team who had the most obvious pick in the draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They obviously took Trevor Lawrence, but after that, fill us in on the grades here.
Yeah, well, listen, the Jags had the easiest pick in the draft. It was kind of listen, no one can trade ahead of you. It's just Trevor Lawrence. It's been Trevor Lawrence, I think, for 5 years, right? So when you get a guy like that and you get your franchise quarterback without really having to do anything but tank properly, it's kind of hard to go wrong. You can kind of flunk the rest of the draft. It's so hard to find a quarterback. They got one. And I'm going to give it an A- just because of that reason. But the other picks, there was a head scratcher, a couple picks they made, because Travis Etienne, I get it. There's comfortable, he's comfortable with Trevor Lawrence. You want to make your franchise quarterback happy, but like a running back in the first round, we all think that that's kind of a stretch. And especially when this team has so many holes, like you still could have got safety help there in the second round as well. And that's where they went with Campbell from Georgia. And it's kind of like, okay, well, if you're going to get a guy in the secondary, at least take, Trevon Moehrig or Richie Grant, Bradshaw's guy. They're still sitting there, right? You have Asante Samuel Jr., who's still on the board, and they went with Campbell. I thought that was kind of questionable. Walker Little, I kind of like that pickup. It was a little sneaky good pickup for the Jags. I was waiting to see when they were going to go offensive line. I'm glad they did that within the first 3 rounds. I thought they would maybe go for a Liam Eichenberg maybe or something like that, but I think it's going to help. But again, those are guys that are going to start. And when you get starters on your team, it's kind of hard to judge against them. But I thought they should have maybe went with, like I said, Moehrig or someone different in the first round or trade back. I don't think anybody was really going to take ETN in the first round. If he's your guy, he's your guy, right? But just had a guy who ran for 1,000 yards and people are talking about, oh, well, this workhorse doesn't work. Well, yeah, well, I hate to tell you, giving up 30 points a game doesn't work either. So you're going to have to help out your secondary. Thought they could have done a little bit better than that, but listen, they got Trevor Lawrence. And for that reason alone, they have to have a good draft just because they found the QB of the future.
Yep, I think that's fair. I give him an A- as well, right? It's kind of tough to give a grade when, you already know, they're expecting to take the number 1 player in the class. Walker Little, I'm with you. I think it's a fantastic pick. When he was a recruit, top 5 recruit, right? 5-star, dealt with some injuries, opted out this year, but I think he's going to step in and be a pretty solid player, even if he starts at guard there. Andre Cisco, I think that's a sneaky good pick as well. ETN is kind of the only question mark for me, right? Like that pick there, their second pick in the first round, it was what were they going to do? Were they going to go edge? Were they going to go get a weapon? Were they going to go get, Mayrig, something like that? ETN isn't sexy to me, but I saw some drafts, had them taking Freiermuth. Guess what? They get a tight end from Ohio State. They get the Luke Farrell kid, right? And that was later 4th, 5th round. I think that's good value to me because this is a team that certainly needs a tight end as well. I think they did a fine job. We know they're not making the playoffs next year. We know this is a team that needs to develop, and Urban Meyer's going to have to, get up to speed with the NFL as well. But I thought it was decent. Did anybody have anything maybe on the more negative side for the Jags?
Yeah, they didn't get the pick in quick enough. So there's that. Like, I mean, I don't know how you have the first pick overall. It just be like, there you go, Roger, ring it up. Yeah, that's pretty much maybe the only way I could really dock them. But you guys are right. Like, I think if the main thing is like, it's almost like when you're drafting in fantasy too, you have to make sure you don't mess up that first pick, right? In fantasy. And if you have the first overall pick, you cannot go wrong. That is like, if you cannot go wrong, because I think it can turn you from an A to an F pretty much, honestly. Like, right. Like, I think that's completely fair, right? If they took Mac Jones number 1 overall, I'm giving how good you think Mac Jones is. Cause I don't think Mac Jones is very good. And yeah, the weird thing to me about the ETN was like, I don't see who would have taken him at like in the first round because they had the very first round of the second round. Yeah, they had pick number 33, so you could have easily gotten him there. I just don't see how. Maybe the Steelers would have wanted him, but I feel like Najee Harris made sense for them. So it's a little confusing, but I actually agree with you guys though. Like they have a lot of good value picks. So like I do think that's for the most part they definitely didn't kill themselves really in this draft.
My one thing is like you easily could have flipped that Tyson Campbell, Travis Etienne pick, and you could have gone Greg Newsome with that pick instead of Etienne, and then you have Etienne at the top of the second round, and you knock this draft out of the MFing park. Like that's like one of the best drafts of this whole year. Like even if you take Trevor Lawrence out of it, that's still that's a fantastic draft. And just because I'm not a big Tyson Campbell guy, he's athletic and he has the tools, but I just don't see it at the top of that second round of like a borderline first round pick. I don't see it with him. So yeah, like if you got Newsome instead and then Etienne at the top of that second round, that's a fantastic draft.
I was just going to say that, and going to say we'll have to see how it pans out because they could have had that reversed, right? And get Newsome, who we've mentioned time and time again, has the hips and he just moves really, really well. But we're gonna have to see, right? Jeff Okudah was, what was he selected 3rd overall last year, and he ended up being terrible. And AJ Terrell and Cameron Dantzler were the better corners, right? So we'll have to see, how it unfolds. But as of right now, Jaguars pretty solid draft, and it was kind of hard to mess it up with that amount of picks. Houston Texans, they didn't have a lot of picks. What was the grade here?
I'm gonna do this in reverse order. I'm gonna go from their bottom pick to their top pick because I liked everything but their top pick. Roy Lopez out of Arizona. He's a little undersized, but as a defensive lineman, but he's strong and he had good agility measurements and stuff like that as pro day. I don't know if he will obviously not impacting anything from day one with the Texans, but that's a fine pick. Like, I'm okay with having a guy like that. You take the bet on the strength, and I'm okay with taking an undersized guy in the 6th round. Garrett Wallow, not a huge fan of that pick. He probably maxes out as a special teamer, big effort guy. Doesn't have a ton of great measurables, but that's 5th round pick. I'm not a huge fan of that, but if you value special teams and you want your good gunners and all that, I'm okay with that. Reverend Jordan, I like the Reverend Jordan pick a lot. That might be my favorite pick of their draft class. Solid value. He's not going to impact year 1 necessarily because not many rookie tight ends do, and he's not a great blocker, but they can use him as a nice weapon for whoever their quarterback of the future is. We'll get to that in a second. Nico Collins, I liked his measurables. He kind of from a measurable perspective, he kind of compared very well to T. Higgins. Obviously didn't have the production that T. Higgins had at all, but that also speaks to quarterback play at Michigan. Michigan has not had great quarterbacks, so I like the Nico Collins pick. I think that's another solid value pick in the 3rd round. He's one of the better receivers that was available. And then we get to Davis Mills in the 3rd round, which is by far my least favorite pick of this class. It's the reason I gave the Texans a C overall. I don't hate Davis Mills as a quarterback. He's got a live arm. He's a pretty intelligent guy. Obviously went to Stanford. He's not very mobile. That's kind of the one issue. But what's the point in taking a quarterback in the 3rd round? I don't understand it. Your team is going to be so bad this year, whether you have Deshaun Watson or not. Your team's going to be bad regardless, and you're probably going to be looking to take a quarterback because you're going to have to get rid of Deshaun Watson there's a couple of reasons that you're probably going to get rid of him, but you're looking to be drafting a quarterback next year, and you just basically wasted the 3rd round pick on Davis Mills, who, if you have to take quarterback next year, he's not going to play. He's going to be a career backup for you, and then you're going to have to get rid of him. Hopefully, maybe you can get some value back for him if you can trade him, but I just didn't understand the Davis Mills pick. Maybe if you want to get a starter for this year, but why are you going to chuck him into this terrible offense, this terrible team in his first year in the NFL when Deshaun Watson's not going to be playing for you and there's just not much help for him? That one didn't make any sense to me. Right when they picked him, I was like, this just doesn't, I don't see it here. He's not going to play. He shouldn't play in year 1. They should just have a stopgap, an Andy Dalton type of guy for the 1 season, get your quarterback next year because you're going to be terrible, and move on from there. So that's kind of my whole thing with the Texas draft class. Some solid value picks, not many high impact guys, and then just Davis Mills didn't make sense.
Yeah, completely with you. It's tough to get a really good draft here when you're not drafting a ton of players. So I give him a C- as well. Reverend Jordan, that was fine. Nico, trading up for him was a little interesting too because you don't have a lot of picks anyway. But yeah, Mills was. You're saying it's the worst pick of their class. It's got to be a top 5 worst pick of this draft, in my opinion. Because why don't you just go best player available there and say this guy's actually going to have an impact on our football team? You're right, not going to play. Right, he's going to end up being Deshaun Kaiser, where the team's so horrible, and if you even see him playing, go, oh yeah, that was kind of shaky. He has no offensive line in front of him, no weapons in front of him. But it doesn't matter about the run game at that point, right? Because you're going to be trailing in every single game. And then what? He's going to have 5 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and you go, well, we're drafting the top 3. We're taking a quarterback regardless. Never going to play again. It just made no sense whatsoever. Luca, Jeff, I'm assuming you guys had a similar grade with the Texans.
Yeah, I think they failed this draft when they made that trade with the Dolphins. I think they were just doomed from the start. And then they don't trade Will Fuller, get maybe potentially a 1st-round pick. He ends up getting suspended for the rest of the year. So the Texans are a mess. Whether Deshaun Watson plays or not, I agree with you guys. Quarterback situation, it's well, if you have a 1st-round pick next year, you're probably going to pick in the top 3 the way your roster is constructed. Are you not going to take a quarterback because you think you found one for the future? They're a mess. They are a mess.
This might be one of the worst off seasons in NFL history.
It's pretty close, especially and then you think about the last 2 off seasons with the Hopkins trade last year too. It's been a rough one for the Houston Texans. Deservedly so, to be honest with you.
Advice for Houston Texans fans: what you should do: stop buying any Houston Texans merchandise. Get together, socially distance, right? I know you guys don't do that down there in Texas, but, just throw all your jerseys in a fire and burn them right in front of the stadium, and don't ever be a Houston Texans supporter ever again.
Until the McNair sell the team at the very least.
At the very least, right? As for the draft, though, I agree with you guys. While you don't hate Davis Mills, Bradshaw, I pretty much borderline hate Davis Mills as a player, not as a person, as a player. But I do like Nico Collins, but I agree. Trading up for him is kind of confusing. I'm only saying because, at the Senior Bowl, he looked good. He was skinny, he was fast, he was quick, so he added that to his game. But he's a student, so obviously it's different, right? We've all been there. But I just kind of wonder to myself, will he be able to maintain it? Is that him? Going to be a bigger, slower, stiffer kind of guy? Reverend Jordan, you guys know I really like Reverend Jordan. That's a really good value pick. But overall, I guess I got to give him a C. But yeah. I'll say this too. As for getting a quarterback, you guys are totally right. You should have gotten somebody else, because I believe there is this guy who has a very good record in the playoffs, has gone to a Super Bowl, is pretty athletically gifted, and for some reason, no one is willing to sign him. And he has a Nike deal. So I'm confused by that, but
Jeff, I get it. But then what happens if he ends up, playing pretty well? And then there's that situation we just said with Mills, is you're going to be drafting top 5 regardless, right? Doesn't really make sense. This team has to blow it up. And with the fans, you're saying, I'd do the same thing. I would put every team except the Texans in a hat and just shake it up and pick a team. That's my new team. This team's a disaster. It's a train wreck. Let's go to Tennessee Titans. So, guys, at first glance, this draft looks pretty darn good, right? I ended up giving them a B+. Let's go through it, though. Caleb Farley, terrific value pick. Other than the injury scares there, he's the best corner in his class. Most polished. He's a nasty type of player. I love the way he plays. And Virginia Tech has a pretty good history of corners regardless. In the second round, Dylan Radins, he was rising. Great Senior Bowl. North Dakota state that kind of scares you against the competition. Guess what? Good size, good hands. I think he plays really well. Elijah Molden, one of the best picks in this draft. Fantastic where they ended up getting him. They needed corners. Well, I don't think he's going to play outside. He's inside and can do a lot of things. Money for the Titans. Des Fitzpatrick, interesting for sure. This team needs receivers, and that was kind of one of the things where I would have, wanted them to maybe take a receiver a little bit earlier. Once you got to the second round, yes, I know they needed some offensive lineman help, especially with their first round pick last year, seemingly out of the NFL. But man, can you imagine the Titans of Terrace Marshall or something like that? They needed another weapon. Corey Davis out, Adam Humphries out, right? Khalif Raymond, I believe, is out too, and that was their 4th wide receiver. It's AJ Brown, Josh Reynolds, and now you're adding Des Fitzpatrick. So the wide receiver room is going to be a little bit small. AJ Brown is going to be a big-time fantasy player. Now we get to this second pick in the round 4, Rashad Weaver. Going to be a big question mark, right? Just got arrested. Not a great sign at all. Whether the Titans do anything about that, we obviously don't know. The player himself, that was great value, but it's going to be tough to grade this draft seeing his situation because, in the moment does not look good at all. Wouldn't be surprised if he plays this season, right? On paper, I give him a B+. I think you get your corner, right? They lost a ton of corners this season. You get a wide receiver. Would have liked to see them take one earlier. You get a tackle. And, you get another corner who can do lots of things, Elijah Molden, who's a flexible player. I thought it was a fine draft. I think it's going to be between them and the Colts winning this division, and I think that's pretty obvious. Did you guys have anything else regarding the Titans, or was it kind of similar?
Pretty good. You left us speechless there, man. Pretty good.
I'm fine with that. All right, so that's going to do it for the AFC South. So now we move to the NFC South. This one was pretty tricky to grade quite a bit, but whoever had the Buccaneers, let's hear it because I struggled with this one.
Yeah, look, I mean, they're the champs. All their starters are coming back. I mean, they could have literally not picked anyone, and I think they would still have a great roster. There's 2 picks that really highlight, or you could say 3. I mean, I thought Joe Tryon was a bit of a reach. I was like, let me go Christian Barmore there because you already have 2 great outside linebackers that can rush the passer. Pair him up, Vita Vea, Dominican too. I thought that would have been really good to get a rotation going. But then it's okay, you go there. And then they get their quarterback of the future, I guess. I mean, if Tom Brady doesn't play out this guy's contract, like Kyle Trask, he was in the Heisman conversation this past year. But again, did they get better? Probably not. I think free agency is what really kept this team intact. They got KJ Britt. I mean, I thought that was a pretty sneaky pick from Auburn. He was their leading tackler, he was their captain. Go in there. But again, their linebacking core is probably the best in football. So it's like you're just getting guys to get rotated at this point. They all come back. I'm gonna just give them just maybe a B minus because they didn't really do much. And I thought the one pick that they still had pretty good players on the board. I thought they would have maybe gone a better player there. But it's hard to argue because they have a pretty good history of drafting players, and you see how well this roster is constructed. So they stand pat for me, average, all right, but they still should be one of the teams to watch out for.
Yeah, I had the same thing. I gave them a B. It's really tough to grade a team who is loaded and returns all of their players. Tryon, bit of a reach for me, opted out last year, seems like a good athlete. I would have gone Ojulari instead. To me, if you're a team that has Tom Brady, never draft a quarterback. They're never going to play, right?
It's a waste of a draft pick.
It is. It just doesn't make sense. Take a flyer on like somebody in the 7th round. I would have liked to see them, maybe take Jamie Newman and get him in the 7th, something like that, where it's like, oh, it doesn't seem like a waste of a pick. Kyle Trask that early, Brady, they told Brady, and I guess he's fine with it. He's welcoming the Trask. He's probably going to play another 2-3 years, guys. We have no idea.
Yeah, I know.
This guy's a machine. My favorite pick was Jalen Darden. Mm-hmm. I hope he gets on the field because he is electric, right? Yards after the catch guy, speedy burner. But you look at this wide receiver room, Godwin, Evans, Antonio Brown, they re-signed. Scotty Miller, how much play time is he going to get? Jeff loves Tyler Johnson. Is Tyler Johnson even going to touch the field anymore, right? Like, this team's loaded. It's hard to mess up, but it's hard to also give your team an A+ when you're drafting at the end of each round. So I gave him a B. Did anybody have anything different with the Bucs?
I think it is interesting that the Darden pick to me, because I think the receiver position is interesting for them because it's so loaded, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're at kind of picking near the the end of each round, right? It's kind of good to have those guys, right? Because you can put Jalen Darden maybe on special teams, right? He's a perfect special teams guy, in my opinion. And then from there, you can say, okay, Scotty Miller, we don't have to pay you. Or, okay, maybe, God forbid. I mean, I like the guy, but maybe they say, hey, Chris Godwin, you know what, buddy, we can't pay you, man. Sorry. You got Joe Tryon, so you don't have to pay a JPP too much money because you got like a young edge rusher. So I think it's a lot of retooling and then kind of future compensation to get more draft capital to move up when you really need to get a guy in the next couple of years while you have Tom Brady. So I think maybe that's the thinking. So I would give them like a B+, only for that reason.
That's a fair point. Fair point that it's just guys who are going to fill in and replace those guys that don't really have to pay them when it comes to that time. All right, Bradshaw, I'll throw it over to you, man. Falcons, how did they do?
I think it was an up and down draft for the Falcons, kind of reminiscent to last year, honestly, with the just a lot of guys that I don't know how impactful they'll be, but let's go through. Obviously, Kyle Pitts, number 1 pick for them. Fantastic pick. We'll see down the line how I feel about it when you compare him to Justin Fields and how Matt Ryan turns out. But Kyle Pitts I think he's going to be fantastic. He might maybe not as good in year 1 as everyone's going to expect him to be because, again, rookie tight end struggle, but he's generational talent. Maybe he breaks that mold. Maybe he, he plays more, I don't know, outside, more in the slot. They use him more as a receiver than as a tight end right away, but we'll see. Fantastic pick. Richie Grant, the guy I wanted for the Falcons the entire time. They took him, they traded down and still got him too, which I loved. I think he'll be, he's their best safety on the roster right now, in my opinion. So that's going to be fun. He's going to get a chance to play right away. I think it's going to be, he has a good vet to learn from in Deron Harmon. Deron Harmon's a very good vet from when I watched him with the Patriots. Great player. Mm-hmm. Going to learn a lot from him. Jalen Mayfield, not huge on the Jalen Mayfield pick whatsoever. He's a project as a player. He should not be a tackle in the NFL. I don't think he has the feet to play tackle in the NFL. I think he's more of a guard, and he hasn't played a ton of guard. And there were better guards on the board at the time. Kendrick Green's still on the board. Quinn Miners, I know he's a center, but if you want to move him to guard, he can play there as well. There were some good guys on the board, and I was surprised they took Jalen Mayfield there. There was a guy later in the draft they got that's probably going to be playing right away. Darren Hall should compete for a nickel cornerback spot right away. He's going to be up there. He's a solid player. I think he probably maxes out as a nickel corner, but he should play right away with competing with Isaiah Oliver. Drew Dahlman should compete right away with Matt Hennessy for the open center job. Drew Dahlman's super athletic. I like that pick a lot. Taquan Graham, I like athletic defensive lineman. He's not going to play right away, but again, a guy you can develop and kind of mold. Ade Ogundeji, there we go. Not huge on that one. I like the Taquan Graham pick a lot more. I don't think Ogundeji is going to really do much in year one, maybe not even year two. He's kind of a project as well. Avery Williams was my least favorite pick of the draft. Punt return specialist. Don't pick a punt return specialist in the 5th round. Don't invest real draft capital into a punt return specialist. Best thing he's going to turn into is a guy that he runs out his rookie contract and he goes somewhere else. Look at Cordaro Patterson. Cordaro Patterson's one of the best returners in the NFL history. He's played on 3 or 4 teams already. These guys don't stay on their teams, and I don't think Avery Williams is going to be good enough as a corner to stick around. Frank Darby, solid pick. I think he's their first boundary receiver they've taken since like 2007. So that's kind of an interesting outside of the 1st round. Very interesting personality too. I think he'll kind of get a chance to play in year one, but he'll make his money on special teams right away. B+ draft for me because of the Pitts, Grant, and Hull picks. But yeah, solid draft, but nothing spectacular in my opinion.
A little lower than I expected. I give the Falcons an A. Kyle Pitts, home run, duh.
Mm-hmm.
Richie Grant, that was your guy. I think he was fantastic, right? I think was he your number 1 safety? I think he ended up being that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Come on, you're getting him in the 2nd round. I think that's fine. The Mayfield pick, you're not too high on it, but there's people who thought he was going to go 1st round.
Mm-hmm.
So where you get him, and I think you're right, smaller size. If he's playing guard, perfect. If he's playing tackle, a little scary. And you mentioned the corner, he's going to play nickel. I had to look him up a little bit. It was his redshirt sophomore year. He had 16 pass breakups.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's kind of, got some ball skills, a little nasty. And I think that's good. And that was something that you guys kind of needed,
mm-hmm.
right? Because I feel like with the Falcons, and I know you can allude to this too, is it's trying to almost put it all together. You have pieces, you have talent all over. The defense, there's question marks. We all know that. And we know the defense isn't going to just turn around and be a top 5 defense next year. But I don't know. I think there's going to be some development. But I don't know. I think you're kind of underrating it a bit. Maybe that's
Bradshaw, stop hating. No, I'm kidding. I like it though. I do like it. I don't hate the Ogundeji pick as much as you obviously don't hate it, but like I kind of like it. I really don't mind it. I really like the Graham pick, Taquan Graham. I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Good replacement. And then Dahlman's not a bad pick either. I do think they kind of maybe, like, at least in my opinion, kind of misevaluated the offensive line picks a little bit.
Yeah.
But you know what? Like, I mean, Mayfield, I think, has a bit of a good upside. So I still kind of like him. Richie Grant, obviously you like him. He wasn't my favorite safety, so I'll give that a little bit of a thumbs down. Sorry. And you got a Darius Washington still out there right now. Like, and I personally love that guy. So, but hey, Kyle Pitts, to me, like, I think, and I think we've been trying to say this, like, I think unless you're absolutely sold on one of the quarterbacks, right, and that was available to you, I think with Matt Ryan's contract just having 3 years on it, it's just like, what is the point of having a rookie deal and not allowing this guy to play when, like, you have like those 3 years? Obviously, like, I think the last one is a bit more like you can release Matt Ryan or something like that.
Yeah. But
I think having a generational guy like Kyle Pitts, potentially the best tight end we have ever seen, I think that's huge. And I think, like, just at this point now, after this, right, since you didn't pick a quarterback here, just keep drafting them every single year. Just take one shot every single time. And just eventually you should hit at least on a very decent backup. So that's, I would give it an A.
Felipe Franks, baby. Here we go.
Here you go.
I do think, you obviously have Matt Ryan there, big time contract. And I think you're kind of right, taking a quarterback, not every single year, but hey, if you're there next year at 11 or 14 or something, I don't think you should be afraid saying we have all the weapons to support a quarterback, even if he's not as developed as, say, the Spencer Rattler, the Sam Howell, someone else that comes in there. I think that would be perfect, right? You're not throwing rookie quarterback in 20. I know we're already talking about 2022 while we're reviewing 2021 draft, but you're not throwing him to the wolves, right? Like he's got weapons and an offensive line, hopefully, in front of him. So that's going to be interesting. I think the Falcons are going to continue to be one of the more interesting teams moving forward. One team that's certainly interesting, Carolina Panthers. And I think that pick at number 8 is going to kind of be a question mark for a while. Luca, what did you have for the Panthers?
Yeah, well, I didn't have the Panthers. I think Jeff did, but I'll give my.
Oh, my bad.
I'll give my 2 cents. Listen, Jeff, you talk a lot. You sit back there a little bit. I'll go. I'll just talk about Jaycee. I thought it was interesting. I probably would have went for 10 if I was looking at corner. There's also a quarterback that they could have got. Maybe steal Jeff's guy so they don't break my heart at 11. But I think they have a good thing going there, Carolina.
That was a good tease from Luca. My bad, Jeff. Fill us in with your draft grade.
You know, the thing is, Luca, he's a Chicago Bear. Justin Fields is a Chicago Bear, and I still haven't come down from that high. I still feel like I'm dreaming. Just a reminder, everybody else out there.
Yeah.
I love Jaycee Horn. It's really hard for me to hate that pick. And I guess he was the best player in my estimation, the best defensive player. Their defense was not very good. I do understand though, like the concern with him being a physical corner and the NFL starting to move away from that. We talked about that in the last episode. I think that does concern me a little bit, but at this moment in time, right now, these guys are still getting away with it right now. Press coverage is still supposedly allowed. So why not take the risk? Terrace Marshall. I do like Terrace Marshall. He's not my absolute favorite. I don't know. I found like some of the second round guys very close. Honestly, I would have even gone Deante Brown. I really liked Deante Brown. I don't know. Call me crazy. I really liked him. Tommy Tremble. That one was weird. That one was so weird. Oh my God. Just take Reverend Jordan. I was screaming to take Reverend Jordan at that time. I guess if you want a fullback, that's cool. If that's the way you want to run your offense. And also I do think like, I know Moss was doing a lot at LSU for Joe Brady, but like they don't typically use tight ends that way. Maybe they're thinking of him more as a blocker and a sneaky pass catcher. Chumpa Hubbard is a guy I actually really like. I really like Chumpa Hubbard a lot. I think he's going to be a special running back. And if you can limit his carries in those first couple of years, that's a really, really good thing. If you know, and then but I think he'll get actually, you know what? He might be a decent fantasy guy because I think they might want to take a few carries off of Christian McCaffrey. And I think Chuba's kind of similar. Davian Nixon, really like that one. I think that was a really, really good pick there for sure. So for me, this draft, I would give it a B+, not over the top, but I think that they improved their team a lot. I guess my thinking is just like, I don't know if they're going to be 500. It's really going to come down to Sam Darnold. And did they put enough around him? I'm not high on Brady Christensen, to be completely honest with you. I think they probably should have gone offensive lineman earlier because I think the tackles were really up there at the top of the draft. Like there was a lot of them, but they disappeared pretty much after round 2, in my opinion. So like it was a good draft. They improved their team. I would be surprised if they're picking in the top 10 again this next coming year.
I'd give them an A-, just because I think the Horn pick is going to be a question mark for a long, long time. You could have gone Justin Fields. You mentioned the tackles. You could have gone Rashawn Slater, right? I like Horn a lot too. I love the way he plays. I miss that in this type of age in football where he's just nasty and wants to beat you up. He's that fun of a player. The rest of the draft, I think they nearly killed it. Terrace Marshall, at where they got him, is fantastic. Can play in the slot, can play outside. I've mentioned this time and time again. Same position as Justin Jefferson in the same system that Jefferson played in. He was fantastic. Brady Christensen, older guy, plays tackle. Obviously, played at BYU, so he's not facing any good competition there. But he had the highest PFF grade of any tackle this season, right? So that's a little bit telling of even if you want to play him at tackle, maybe slide him inside, make it a little easier to get started. Now, you don't like the Tommy Tremble pick. Tommy Tremble is not a regular tight end. It's not going to be a Travis Kelce. To me, I think this is a fun pick to help out Christian McCaffrey. He is Kyle Juszczyk 2.0. He can hit you, knock you on your ass, and like his block, just look at the way he blocks. He blows people up and can still catch it time and time again. So I think that's a fun pick. Deante Brown, I believe, Jeff, that he was one of your higher guards in this class. They
do like him. Forgot to mention that. Yeah, I do.
They
like
get
that.
him in round 6, right? I think that's a fine pick. Shi Smith, don't know how he fell this far. Slot player like Marshall, but now they almost have so many weapons and so many guys to fill in, which is going to be fun too. Terrific route runner, yards after the catch player as well. Hubbard was interesting to me, but I don't know. I just keep looking at this draft and I go, it's fantastic. It's going to be that pick at number 8 for a long, long time. If Justin Fields ends up tearing it up like we all expect him to do, that could have been your guy. And Sam Darnold hasn't shown you anything in New York, and you traded a little bit away to go and get him. A little bit scary for me. Bradshaw, Luca, what did you think of what the Panthers did?
I probably lean more towards where Nolan is on it than where Jeff is. I like the draft as well. Yeah, I mean, it was funny. They took just the funny ones. They took a long snapper. I think that's kind of funny to me. But I mean, you got to value special teams. Special teams matter too. So, yeah, sure. It's I Nolan kind of hit it on the head. I like the draft. I think a little bit more than Jeff did.
Yeah, I agree. They have Sam Darnold, so it was kind of like it's iffy. Like, are you going to protect him? Or are you going to give him a weapon? They did with Marshall. I thought there was great value at that pick. But then, like, do you go for Justin Fields? Like, okay, well, why did we just give away? What they give, like a 2nd, 4th, and a 6th, or something like that? It's like kind of just wasted it. But he could be your quarterback for the future. And we all know how hard it is to find a guy like that. So it'll be interesting if Jaycee Horn can, be the guy they think he is. It's gonna be a good pick. So it's all on number 8. It's what you said, Nolan.
No, they didn't pick up Darnold's 5th-year option, did they?
I don't think so. No,
because
it's just try him for 1 year, see if he works out. And to be honest, the team set up at least offensively for him to do well. Yes, I don't think that there is no excuse for him. I have made plenty of excuses for Sam Darnold, like just because I would for any quarterback that had to deal with Adam Gase and that god awful offense and that god awful defense and that really just shambolic organization.
Except for Justin Herbert, you wouldn't make excuses for Justin Herbert.
Not Justin Herbert. No, I wouldn't do that. No, he's a bad guy. I'm pretty sure. Justin Herbert seems like a good guy.
But I do think you're right. Like, this is going to be a test and see, like, hey, you were surrounded by dog crap in New York. We're giving you weapons galore. Our offensive line, But guess what? We also have a running back that can catch for 1,000 yards too, right? And I think that's like, if Sam Darnold ends up putting up similar numbers that he did in New York, he's not getting another chance, right? And then guess what? If that means he doesn't perform well, you're picking in the top 10 again. We've mentioned there's probably going to be maybe 3-4 quarterbacks who are going to be there in 2022. That'll be your new guy, right? So I think that's certainly interesting with the Panthers. But speaking of horrible drafts, New Orleans. What a
night. Let's go.
That was fun for me, guys, because obviously Sean Payton thinks he's smarter than everyone on earth, and that's not the situation with this draft. They always kind of do this. They always say, like, we're trading all the way up. We want to go get a quarterback. We want to go get a weapon. And then they don't do it. Well, I guess the one time they did is they took the kid out of San Antonio State, Marcus Davenport, or wherever he was from.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they traded up for him, yeah.
They traded like 15 picks and gave up another first and another third, whatever it was. They traded up a lot to go and get kind of a project player, turned into a fine player. Mm-hmm. And then they go and take Peyton Turner here, which is certainly an interesting pick. Nobody would have had him there. And I guess they liked him for his leadership. But don't you already have all these leaders on this defense already? So he would have been great for maybe a younger team that needs that guy on the defensive side of the ball. Early for me. Pete Werner, okay, fine pick, right? Whatever. You also have, one of the best linebackers in football in Demario Davis. So I guess you need another linebacker there. Not crazy valuable there at 2. My favorite. This is my favorite. Ian Book.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I said worst picks in the draft, and I said that for Mills. That might be the worst pick in the draft. His over/under for where he was going to be selected, 207. Some people thought he wasn't even going to get drafted, right? No, like arm strength is bad. Placement, right? Athleticism, yeah, he can move around quite a bit. He is a college quarterback that benefits from a system and benefits from a phenomenal offensive line, which is always a top 3 offensive line in college football. And he's undersized too. Like, it's nice. But you already have Jameis Winston. You already have this guy who is a tight end who you seemingly think can play quarterback too. It just makes no sense. Like this draft sucks. It's like, tell me any of these players who you think are going to step in day one and make an impact. Like they have a good defensive line already. Like Peyton Turner, is he going to get on the field much? I don't know. Safety's a question mark for this team, right? Marcus Williams is on the tag. They have no money. They have no money at all. You could have taken a safety. Mayrig was there, right? That was, maybe a guy. Richie Grant would have been there, right? And then they have the other safeties falling. Andre Sisco's falling. Could have taken him instead of Pete Werner. And weapons, too. Like, I remember in my mock draft, I know I'm ranting now. In my mock draft, I had Terrace Marshall there, first round. I know, Jeff, you said you're not too high on him. This is a team that needs a weapon, right? Michael Thomas, yes. Alvin Kamara can catch out of the backfield, yes. Who else is there right now for this team, right? They have the little kid Harris, who's 5'6". Like, come on. You need to give Jameis Winston some weapons to show he's successful. You already have the great offensive line. You already have this great system, right? You can't have your number 3 option being Taysom Hill. Like, that's disgustingly bad. And then so you take a receiver at 255. Kaywan Baker, not going to play. Special teamers, not going to touch the field, right? This draft sucked, guys. Let me go see my grade before I,
just give him an F, Nolan. Don't be a nice guy.
I did give him an F, or maybe I was a bit nicer and gave him a D-.
Oh my goodness.
So I gave him a D.
You're all the way in, or you're all the way out, man. Come on.
I'll switch it. I will switch it. I had a D-. I will give them an F because, I don't understand why this team consistently thinks they're smarter than everyone and it messes up. Like, yes, they hit on Michael Thomas. They hit on Kamara. Man, these past 2 drafts have been a mess for them. And it's
so you're saying they didn't do this draft by the book?
They didn't. They did not do it by the book. Bradshaw.
Why, Brad? Just why?
Because it's the Saints, and I want to make fun of them as much as I can.
No, I'll tell you what. I'd be stunned if this team made the playoffs next year. I know they still have talent, but we look at a team there in Tampa Bay. Come on, they're going to win the division. Now that they figured it out, how early that start was, and they didn't really click right away in the first 8 weeks. Obviously, they figured it out. So now it's in year 2. Yeah, Saints were a mess. Well, thank you for listening to my TED Talk. That's how bad they were. Guys, that's going to do it. Unless anybody else wants to just keep crapping on the Saints with me.
You're saying Peyton's not going to help him turn it around.
All right. Well, that's good. No, that's our cue.
What a way to end it.
Guys, that's going to wrap up the AFC South and the NFC South draft.
Wow. Okay.
Stick around for more content from the Cover 4 podcast. Make sure to check out Lingo Sports. Like, share, subscribe. We're going to have more draft grades coming out later this week. Thanks, guys.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Lingo Sports and Lingo News for a whole lot more just like this.